The Open Therapy Institute is addressing bias in mental health care. Go to our website, opentherapyinstitute.org. We have CE credit workshops about overlooked issues in the field. You can go to our workshop page and register now and become a member. And for those looking for a therapist, we match people with someone who's highly skilled and truly open. Just contact us through the contact page on the website or email us at info@opentherapyinstitute.org. Hi, I'm Leslie Elliott Boyce, and I'm speaking with Dr. Andrew Hartz of the Open Therapy Institute for another installment of our podcast series. And today I was thinking about this big, because a lot of what we focus on are overlooked issues in mental health. And I think that the lingering effects and the profound impacts of COVID policies on many people it's almost as if we have a collective amnesia and people aren't talking about this. And yet it was one of the most paradigm shattering experiences. Maybe the most that's happened in our lifetime. We had this complete change, like everything ground to a halt and changed. And we were all, either terrified of the government or terrified of the virus. And people had falling outs with their friends and family over this if they didn't agree on it. People were forced into medical compliance with masks and vaccines. Some people thought that was a really great idea because it was protecting each other. And some people felt like it was a massive, oppressive government overreach that invaded their privacy in the most intimate way. And kids were taken out of schools, taken away from their peer groups, and handed screens, put on those. And, you see a lot of impact in young people who went through that in really tender developmental periods, had their entire life change rapidly. So I kind of want to dig into that a little bit. And I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but I'd love to hear them.
Well, I am really interested in the lingering effects of COVID. It is, and especially of the lockdowns. I there's so much happening in the world at the same time that it's hard to kind of like suss out what's contributing to it. But I do think COVID played a role in, I think, a broad social turn towards dissociation.
Mhm.
People really became more dissociated during COVID. And I think parts of their psyche kind of shut down. And they struggled to, um, you just couldn't, when you're not present with people in person in the same way, it kind of
Mhm.
like, I think it kind of puts people zone out or tune out certain parts of themselves. And I think a lot of it has to do with like hyperstimulation related to social media and TikTok and things like that. Part of it has to do with just being on screens all the time and not being out. But I think a lot of that shift was really accelerated by the lockdowns.
Mhm.
And it's made me, I've been thinking a lot about this issue of dissociation from like a treatment standpoint of like, how does it interact with how people engage with therapy? And how do we kind of cut through dissociation so that people are more present and people are more in touch with their bodies, maybe, and what they're feeling, and in touch with each other and interpersonal dynamics? Because I think a lot of that kind of got shut down and then it didn't get uh, turned back on. And um, but that's maybe an effect that would actually be like harder to measure. Like I don't know that people would, you could ask a self-report, like, do you feel more dissociated? I'm not sure that people would necessarily are good at assessing how dissociated they've become because
Might
they're
have to have a better
dissociated.
metric, right?
Yeah. So, but what would that metric be?
hmm
Because it's a very subjective thing. It's not necessarily a
hmm
behavioral thing in the same way. It's like
You'd
people
almost
are
have
less,
to pull people before and after. It's
well, poll them about what exactly.
mm.
They do have questionnaires to assess for dissociation, but I'm just not sure that they're great at really hitting the experience because you have to have a fair amount of introspective awareness to report accurately on that.
It may seem like a pretty basic question, but could you describe dissociation?
Well, there's kinds of there's dissociative disorders, in the DSM, and one of them is like depersonalization or derealization. It's like things don't feel real, or you don't feel like you're yourself or something. You don't feel like your body is you or something. It's a defense. Dissociation is a defense mechanism that where you're kind of some of the your connections to feelings, thoughts, self states is ruptured. And so it's a little bit different from repression, where there's a desire or a thought and you're kind of like pushing it down. The repression kind of implies that you're pushing it down or fending it off. Whereas
Mhm.
dissociation, it's almost like your connection to that thing, there's a rupture between
Mm.
a certain self state or a certain memory or experience or feeling.
Mm.
And so there's a need to kind of try to reestablish a connection
Mhm.
that's kind of
Mhm.
been severed. But I think a lot of times it's more just like you're you're less present. There's parts of your interpersonal environment that are tuned out. There's parts of your body that are tuned out. There's part of what you're thinking and feeling that are tuned out, and you're maybe just less less present, less engaged, less attentive,
Mhm.
less. It's kind of like when you're streaming through all this, flipping through all this content on your phone, and it's all incredibly stimulating but impersonal, and you're kind of not in your body, you're not really present with. Maybe that's the benefit. Is like if you have any
Mhm.
distress, you can turn that on, and it really will get your attention onto something else. And it's
Mhm.
you can wait for an hour at a doctor's office for for a health issue, and you're on your phone for an hour just flipping through constant simulation, but your thoughts aren't present and coherent in the
Mhm.
same way.
Mhm.
So I guess that's more the experience I'm thinking of, as opposed to maybe the traditional dissociation of like forgetting chunks of time. There is this idea of a dissociative fugue,
Mhm.
which is when you kind of forget about everything in your life and you block out a period of memory, and you
Yeah.
go live as someone else, or you go away and do something totally different for a period of time, potentially a long period of time, even like although people are skeptical of some of these diagnoses.
Those are
But
such interesting stories.
yes. Yeah, but and you have multiple personality, which is called dissociative identity disorder. It's another very controversial diagnosis, but the idea behind it is that there's this rupture between these different self states that are not integrated, that you move between.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
people could experience it in a uh, less severe way, where they have a not a coherent, distinct entire identity that's separate from another one, but just a mode that's different from another mode.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's helpful. That's helpful. I was thinking about, and I think that it's really interesting that you bring up this idea of dissociation. My thoughts when I think about the impacts, the social impacts of the lockdown period are that it's mostly about severing people from their social connections. But I hadn't really thought about how it also severed people from themselves. The social connection, if you I think a lot of people were worried that they were spending too much time on their phone or too much time on screens for years. Wait, this predates COVID.
Yes.
But being locked down, banned from public spaces, sent home from work, and the only thing that you have to do is kind of putter about your house, do your little small things that you do in your own closed-in environment. Maybe talk to people on the phone, but you know, you I think a lot of people didn't want to go read the books that they had waiting on their bookshelf. They were worried about what's happening, so they went into sort of a frantic information gathering mode. And that meant that all of your attempts to sort of keep your social media use in balance went right out the window because now it was necessary in order for you to understand what was going on and how it was going to impact you. And so you had people who probably went from a really moderate level of use that they were trying to keep at bay and keep in balance. Suddenly they were on their phone all day long or on the internet all day long trying to understand
Right.
this expert said that and this expert said that and my governor is
Right.
doing
Right.
this and my mom thinks
Right.
that and I can't believe she thinks that. And so,
Right.
from this this thing came out of its pocket and became everything for a lot of people. And this was the start of people having not just permission, but being compelled to stay inside of their houses and withdraw from social connection. And social connection is full of stress. It's rewarding, but it's also stressful. You have to make plans, you have to show up, it might be awkward, you might, whatever. It's just it breaks your routine. So you had
Right.
a massive excuse to disengage. And I think a lot of people still have not really re-engaged or haven't re-engaged to the level that they had before. And for
Yeah.
kids, especially the people who were
Right.
going into those awkward phases where they were going to have to learn how to master some of these skills for themselves for the first time. Maybe they were in middle school or high school at an age when they begin to do some individuation and start to form their peer groups independent of their families. They lost the chance to do a lot of that normal human practice and skill building that they would have been doing. And instead, they went onto Tumblr and Reddit and found their groups based on niche interests online, connecting with people who are so far away from them that they don't even know who this person is. And it really distorted and warped the way that people connected with each other. And I think that that's a massive problem. And the thing that you're introducing is this whole other level at which people sort of disconnect from themselves. And when you describe dissociation, my first sort of memories of experiencing something like that would have been like as a kid or a young adult, this is pre-internet being everywhere, coming out of a movie theater and blinking in the sunlight and being like,
Uh-huh.
that feeling of like I was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
in this
yeah.
other world and now I'm back in my body and I don't know what to
Right,
do with
right, right.
myself.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of idiomatic, something that a lot of us older people will know, but a lot of younger people, I don't know if they would be able to relate to that because they're having that
Yeah.
that's they're
They
being
never come out of the
subsumed.
movie theater.
They
They
never
never come
come out
out.
of the theater.
They're just
Yeah.
still, they just live there.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I think, and more and more is emerging about this, but the technology, and I do think it was really impacted by COVID, but maybe it's a little bit of a tangent. But I do think the technology has changed our brains and
Mm-hmm.
and it's changed our psyche. And I think that really has huge impact on therapy. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen a lot more of a desire for psychedelics, for MDMA, and I think what it seems like to me is that it's part of the desire of it is um, just talking about these issues. We're not a repressed, it's like we're not, maybe in Freud's day, it was a repressed society where people had desires that they kind of pushed back and tried
Mm-hmm.
but but I think that if we live in a dissociated society, it's people are lost. They're losing connections to part of themselves and they want to connect to that and process it. And the idea is maybe with MDMA, maybe with psilocybin, maybe with some of these things, I'm going to reawaken this and
Mm-hmm.
process what I need to process.
Hmm. That's really interesting.
And like it, because just talking about it, there's so much talking in our society and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of over disclosure and there's very confessional culture. It's not the same place where people couldn't talk about their
Mm-hmm.
feelings anywhere. It's just a different dynamic. But if the central defense mechanism that we're working with is dissociation, it may need different types of interventions. And I, I'm broadly skeptical of MDMA and psilocybin. I'm not like totally anti, but I'm broadly skeptical of them. I but thinking about what is going to help people connect to the feelings that they've dissociated with.
Mm,
I think that's kind of like actually the central philosophical thing. And it may not be talking in the same way. Talking may be part of it,
mm,
but it may not be the same thing that's to connect to those pieces that they need to process and work through. It may be a different, we may be want to be thinking about different types of processes that cut through dissociation. It might not also be meditation either. Honestly, meditation might be something that's too cognitive and not vitally alive enough for most people. Maybe for some people it's different, but for most, it's not something that gets them out of their head and gets them connecting to parts of themselves that they know are there but can't access in the same way.
mhm,
So what would enable people to do that? To become more present and less dissociated. And it probably does and would involve time away from tech
mhm,
and social and maybe and more embodied. Not or embodied activity would be part of it. So would social things,
mhm,
but different types of interventions because I just think the psyche is different than it was 100 years ago for people, and the tech is a big part of it, and I think the dissociation's a big part of it, and it might be why uh, maybe people who are very dissociated don't get what they want out of therapy sometimes because
mm.
it takes more pushing. It takes something different or something more to get what they're looking for.
Wow, that's really interesting. Your description of the potential of some of the like entheogenic substances like psilocybin, et cetera, it almost sounds homeopathic in a way. I mean, what you'd be doing is taking a thing that dissociates you in order to treat the dissociation and help you undo some of that. It almost sounds like um, I mean, that's just fascinating. And I don't know if that would be the answer either. I'm kind of skeptical of some of those things too. I think some people have great
Right.
experiences and there's reason for um, some hesitation as well. But yeah, the tech really has changed our brains. And I
Well,
think that,
I
go
had a
ahead.
patient, I had a patient who years ago who really wanted me to kind of like somehow read his unconscious and
Mm,
find the hidden bits of pain or trauma that were there
mhm,
to help him access them. And he was really interested in hypnosis.
mhm,
He's like, hypnosis would be a way. But the idea of just sitting and talking, he's like, it's just not going to come out this way.
mm,
You know, he couldn't find it in that mode. I wasn't able to kind of read it, you know, do
mhm.
that, read his mind. But there was this kind of desire. Could you find the pieces that I've lost of myself and
Wow.
somehow reanimate those for me? And
That's so painfully beautiful or beautifully painful. I mean, it's poetic.
yeah,
Find the pieces of myself that I've lost and help me put them together again.
they want to feel something and have an experience and connect. And it might be that the confessional space of psychotherapy is like suited for certain types of problems, but there might be other modalities that would be more effective for other types of problems.
Hmm.
Where people are like, I don't really want to talk more about this,
Hmm.
but how do I get through it?
Hmm.
Um, so it
Transitional.
there's got to be there's so much potential to like create such interesting stuff in all of these domains. Um,
Hmm.
it's a shame that our field doesn't seem to be doing it. But
I,
maybe there's an opportunity to create some of this stuff.
yeah, I don't know what that would look like. I mean, the overly cognitive era we seem to be in. I do agree with you. I mean, we
Right.
have describing that way in which we all got on our social media 24/7 during COVID, to learn, to gather information. It's like the seeking of knowledge has morphed into this perpetual infotainment culture where we're gathering information to entertain ourselves. We've lost other ways of entertaining ourselves. How many people have the experience of no longer having the attention span to sit through a movie without picking up their phone to check something, when a movie used to be your junk food. That used to be the thing you
Yeah,
did to
yeah.
to zone out. And now that's increasingly common. And I think uh, another thing I hear all the time, and I'm guilty of myself, is putting on a podcast just to do your normal errands and routines. Like you have to have something playing while you go for a jog or while you work in the garden or while you're, I don't know, driving from point A to point B or puttering about the house. You have to have that space filler because boredom is uncomfortable. It's always been uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable thing for people.
Right, right,
And
right.
also, it sort of drowns out those deeper, darker, troubling thoughts that you would have to contend with if your mind were open for those to surface. So
Right.
there's that way in which we're distracting ourselves, solving the boredom, but also distracting ourselves from the existential stuff.
Well, and I was talking to somebody last week, not a patient, but who said that he doesn't meditate. He just stares out the window. And it's not meditation. It's just like letting your mind just like process things,
Hmm.
just kind of like having some empty time.
Hmm.
Um, like you're not necessarily thinking, you're not working, you're not on a screen,
Hmm.
you're just sitting for a second. And no phone, no tech, but just kind of like just looking out the window. And it's like you kind of were so overstuffed with information and with
Hmm.
stimulation. And I think that's part of what drowns us out. And there's another thing too of like the pace, it has an inhuman speed of the pace of these
Hmm.
apps
Hmm.
of it. So it's like if I'm talking to an actual person, I'm kind of like, like speed this up, get to the next thing.
Yeah, can I
And like
press double tap for two
to
x?
2x speed it, and then if not,
Yeah.
just like, no, you're a person. And it's like it just goes at a different rhythm.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I'm less present, more, I think there's like all kinds of like really big cognitive effects that shift how what people are, what symptoms are going to look like, what treatment problems are going to look like, and what interventions work for people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I'm not convinced that the old model of therapy is like necessarily going to be the permanent model.
Hmm.
In fact, I'm getting, I think through a lot of, there's a desire for it for something new, really. And something that again is like maybe has elements of spirituality, is social, is embodied, is unplugged, is more experiential, less
Hmm.
cognitive, but kind of still mirrors this similar types of processes.
Hmm.
So I think there's that I don't know that would be such a valuable contribution to start conversations on
Massive.
that. Yeah.
It would be massive. I think, a lot of people really blame themselves for having a lack of discipline. That's something you hear, like, they don't even want to, they're just kind of disgusted with themselves that they can't just get this in balance the way that they want. But it's not just you, it's everybody. It's a problem of our time. It's a problem that people who were born and raised before social media are finding now that we have it. And it's a problem that people who were born in the digital age are having. And if somebody can develop a strategy or a technique to help people walk this back a bit in a way that gives them some assistance or some tools to do it, it would be massive. It's not just a self-discipline problem. I really think
Mm,
of this like the studies on supernormal stimuli. Like
mm,
there was a study about, I think it was a kind of beetle that the males were attracted to the females and they had this, I might be getting this backwards, but they had this like shiny carapace. And so they presented the males with a bottle, like a like a beer bottle or something that was the same color as the females, but it was brighter and shinier. And the males spent their entire mating energy trying to mate with this bottle and did not they totally neglected the actual female
Right.
beetle. So you have a die-off of the species and the or a potential die-off of the species, or at least that lineage, right? So what we have right now is this is a supernormal stimulus. Like you said, it's life, but in life on drugs. It's like
Right,
you're
right.
you're seeing
Yeah.
it all, and but these videos come fast, and they're just the interesting clips, and there are
Right,
so
right,
many
right.
of them, and it's really hard for a normal person to compete with that. Like you said, you want to hit the 2x and speed them up or clip out this boring repetitive part that
Yes.
you get to the point, So we have a problem that's affecting everybody. It's not just a matter of somebody's
Yeah.
self-discipline. Although that's,
And
part of the picture if we could figure that out.
well, I mean, there is something like I admit that I'm reading books less, and I somebody was
Hmm.
telling me, try to spend an hour a day actually reading a physical book.
Yeah.
Um, and but these kind of like these old novels where they're kind of like, well, it was a lovely morning and I walked through the park and
Yeah.
I saw Johnson. It's like, good morning, Johnson. It's just kind of like, we just don't have that. Like, what? You're kind of like, what? What the pace of this, where it's
Yeah.
just like all jump cuts to get through the whole. I had thought with AI, I'm sorry about my cough. With I think they're going to be making Cliff's Notes movies where it's going to be like, I want to watch Citizen Kane, but it's like 20 minutes. It's all jump cuts. It's hyper fast. And it's just like, this is the movie,
I
you
don't
know?
know how how I feel
Yeah.
about that.
But you're just going to be, I think that I actually talked to somebody, um, they were in the UK who was like a lot of Gen Zers are listening to music on 2x speed. Like there's a whole
Oh my gosh.
Spotify thing.
Like they can't
Actually,
listen to a whole song drawn out at normal speed.
there's a whole Spotify genre of music that's like too sped up. And so you can look for like whatever classic pop song you have and like do the sped up version and it'll do it. And it's interesting because it's like it's weird, but it has more energy. It has like you
Mm,
can kind of see what's happening with like it's 2x or sped up. It might not be 2x. But
that's interesting.
yeah. But
Hmm.
so I think there's like but in terms of the attention to detail, sorry. In terms of or I guess the procrastination issue, I would see that as different from the other issues of like there's the dissociative issues where there might be like a numbing or a difficulty connecting to people, and then there might be like a the different issue of like procrastination, which is maybe more of almost like or an addiction where you kind of can't stop
Mm-hmm.
doing it even when it's causing major problems for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah, the
Um,
compulsion is greater than the willpower.
exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
those I think are kind of different. I think would probably be like different strategies. People need time practices of away from their phone or
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah, if somebody can put together a really concise program for that, I think it would be very helpful.
a slow embodied program.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like something that, like the couch to 5K, that idea that you're not just going to get up and run a 3 mile
Right.
run. You're going to start by walking a lot, get yourself there gradually. Maybe start by walking and running a little bit for a mile, gradually working up to the point where you can go 3 miles at a jog. And I think something like this, you need to give yourself wins, give yourself a chance. Like the reading a book for an hour a day. One of the things that I do is I try to start my day with a book and end it with a book. So
Oh,
instead of grabbing the phone and looking at that first thing in the morning, pick up a book
yeah.
and read at least for a little bit. I like a slow morning with a book, and I end the day, plug my phone in across the room and get in bed with a book for a little bit. So
And it
that's
might be
helpful.
there's also getting your vision looking far. if your gaze is
Oh,
constantly
yeah.
like 1 or 2 or 3 feet in front of you,
Mhm.
really not even 3 feet, like 1 or 2 feet in front of you, it's like getting yourself looking out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's like, I think I think there's a real desire for this, and
Mhm.
might be a future direction that the field goes in.
Yeah, it's so interesting with a particular topic prompt, how many directions you can take it in conversation. I feel
Mm.
like we still have several threads that we could pick up and talk about this COVID issue, like what happened to us.
Right,
We
right,
we
right.
chose the technology and how it's impacting our brains and um, our internal experience, dissociation. I think that's so fascinating because that wasn't even on my radar when I brought that up. And maybe at another point we can talk about some of the other impacts, like the
You know, th
impact on kids and
this is also another
youth.
thing, thinking about technology and AI,
Mhm.
is if you're talking to ChatGPT, you won't, I don't think you'll get that.
Oh,
Like
that
if you were like,
tangential.
or it's not tangent, yeah, but it's like different associations that are related, that are
Mm.
unexpected,
Mhm.
that ChatGPT is going to give you. If you had this conversation with ChatGPT, every comment would be related to your prompt, and you wouldn't get a, hey, did you ever think about this angle on it that you might not be, and then saying something interesting and be like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe we want to go down. Like,
Yeah.
I I wonder about that as a limit, a major limitation of what it can do. I don't know how you could program like those kinds of unexpected but appropriate tangents. Like,
Yeah.
because if I was in therapy with a patient, it could happen. I could say, hey, I'm having an association to this,
Hmm.
but and that might generate something really fruitful that would never come out in ChatGPT. I would only do that in a context where I felt like it was appropriate,
Right.
but
Right.
I don't know how ChatGPT might introduce that, or what it would be, or if what information would it be using to come to that conclusion, that sort of
That's
thing.
really an interesting point because humans speak in metaphor and allegory and association all the time. And that's a part of how we process and sift through ideas and information. And even if AI is like got all the Google, they have all the
Yeah,
information, they can put it together
right.
for you. They don't have that human way of reflecting and uh, associating something to some other unrelated thing through metaphor or through um, the looser connections. That's interesting. It's a plug for human conversation.
Yeah, it is.
Well, thanks for having this chat with me, Andrew. It was great to talk with you.
Same. Thanks.